Anthony Salvanto, he is the CBS News Executive Director of Elections and Surveys. Anthony, always great to actually have you here with us. Tell us more about the public's reaction. We know that people are really energized. What are you seeing?
Yep, it's obviously an issue that is on a lot of people's minds. Look, right after the ruling, we went out, we asked people, okay, do you approve or disapprove? And you get a majority who said they disapprove. Now, in some sense, that's not really big news because we knew going in that people were telling us they wanted it to stay in place. At least the majority was. But the thing I want to point out is look at this among views among women, right? Women at 67% disapproval, and that really stood out to me. And in part because you want to look at what people think then are the ramifications of this going forward. And that, on one measure, is it a step forward? Is it a step backward? Is it neither? And you get this big margin, more than 20 points, where people say it's a step backwards for America rather than a step forward. So again, one of the things we want to watch is what do people think of the ramifications of this going forward? And, you know, I should add, guys, we should look at the folks who did approve of it being overturned, and they describe themselves in big numbers as being hopeful and being happy. So that's that side of it as well.
All right. I mean, I know the answer to this without even looking at the polling, but let's look at party lines. I mean, how does it break down when you look at? Okay, I mean, exactly what we expect.
See, look, you ask, I have.
Right, you got the numbers. This probably, I could probably do this poll without using any science at all, right? I mean,
exactly. Look, but that's because we follow politics. You follow politics, and people who do know that this has been a big partisan issue, obviously, for generations. Now, one of the things I do point out, though, is that it's not universal. Yes, highly partisan, right? 83% of Democrats, 78% of Republicans on the brakes for approve, disapprove. But there is almost 1 in 5 Democrats and there is 1 in 5 Republicans who are on the other side of this. And we see breaks that are not just partisan. We see breaks by age. Younger people are more likely to disapprove. And I think some of this is, you want to watch the legislatures where it might seem from the observer like it's universal all across the board, but not necessarily.
That is an excellent point, because I had a conversation with a friend of mine who lives in Texas, who is a staunch Republican, who voted for President Trump. At least his wife did. And one of the things that they said to me recently is that they are probably not going to vote Republican in state elections, governor, state legislature, because of the moves that Governor Abbott is making in the wake of this ruling, and also in terms of guns, because of what we just saw in Uvalde. So I wonder if they're in that 22%, and if you do this poll next week or 2 weeks from now, as it starts to sink in, we start to see that disapproval number for Republicans inch up. Not by a wide margin, but maybe by enough to tip an election.
Well, let's watch what the campaigns do, right? If this campaign becomes about this ruling, and Democrats, there's already some speculation, they're going to talk about it a lot, does that move the needle? But Republicans, from what I've heard, want this campaign to be about the economy. Right, and we'll talk about that.
Sure.
So if that becomes the dominant force, and clearly it's the top issue, it has been on people's minds, then maybe less so, right? So it's all about what's most salient for people. And I think that's going to be a campaign effect. So as we talk about polling throughout, it's going to be trying to respond to what's out there.
I think you're 100% correct that people are now looking at their state and local elections about abortion in a way that they never have before. It's also really interesting, Anthony, those independent numbers, and seeing how almost 3 times as many disapprove as approve, 2.5 it looks like.
Yeah, and you're right about that, because now people will focus on their states, right? Now that people are going to learn the legal process, which many may not have known. Okay, now it's entirely up to your state. Now they have an impetus to go and pay more attention to
but
that.
You also said economy is going to be the driving force for the Republicans campaigning. Tell us a little bit quickly about what's happening on the economy and how public opinion is trending.
Well, the short answer is people think it's getting worse, right? So the numbers that say it's going bad keep going up, and there's a reason for that. One is that people's pocketbooks are being affected, and they tell us that, and prices. But there is one thing I just want to point out, and that's this number. Democrats, 60% of whom now say that the economy is bad. Whenever we talk about the economy and these numbers in polling, there's always a sort of home team advantage, because the president's party always gives you a little benefit of the doubt. But this majority of Democrats now, that's political trouble for the Dems.
Yeah,
it definitely. If you're President Biden and you're looking at these numbers, and as you say, Anthony, that home team advantage is slowly evaporating.
Yeah, it really is. That's a big thing to watch.
All right, Anthony Salvanto, always great, as Lana says, to have you in the studio, my friend. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.